Elite 11 finals in Los Angeles set to get underway. That's Andrew Ivins. That's Steve Wiltfong. I'm Josh Pate. So we've seen guys come through the lobby. We're going to see them tee it up on the field a little bit later over the next couple of days. Ivins, I'll start with you. Just what's the vibe so far? What are you picking up?
I've been talking with a lot of these quarterbacks. We got 20 finalists here, asking them who the biggest competition is. No one really wants to say it.
Interesting feedback.
Yeah. But the vibe you get is it's Dylan Raiola, right? Our number one ranked quarterback, our number one player in the class of 2020. And I think a lot of guys know he's the dude here, right? He's the guy they're all looking up towards. And I think it's interesting. Ryan Puglisi, another Georgia commit, a quarterback commit, is out here. You know, Ryan Puglisi has never talked with Dylan Raiola face-to-face before. He's never seen him throw. They've only exchanged a few text messages. He told me it wasn't a group chat, but there's been this and that. So I'm interested to see how that plays out on the field. And then CARR, who's knocking on the door, 5-star status, our number 4 quarterback right now, headed to Notre Dame. CARR, he told me that him and Dylan Raiola played on the same 11U baseball team years ago. So, you know, there's a little rivalry there. So I just think that's notable. The fact that everyone's looking towards Dylan Raiola. Back to Puglisi, man. When we talk about frame, I mean, these kids are showing up in shirts and sweaters and whatnot. But I thought he looked very impressive. I thought Elijah Brown, the uncommitted quarterback out of Mater Dei, much bigger than I expected him to be. Good-looking frame. So that's just some different things that I've picked up on so far.
Steve, some early part 1, day 1 takeaways from you.
Yeah, I think a lot of these quarterbacks are very excited about the recruiting classes that they're part of and who they're recruiting moving forward. Will Hammond, Texas Tech commit, first guy to check in. I thought he was physically impressive on the hoof as well, squatting over 400 pounds now, deadlifting over 400 pounds now. So I'm excited to see him out here. It's a deep crop of Texas quarterback passers that are competing in this event, and I kind of want to see who rises to the top in the Lone Star State. But talking to guys like Air Noland, who's committed to Ohio State, Dante Reno, who's committed to South Carolina, they feel like they're on the verge of more commits as they add to some of the top recruiting classes in the country right now.
What's really interesting when we get in this setting is quarterbacks are competing against quarterbacks instead of competing against a high school defense. But also we've got our entire team, seemingly of thousands, on the 24/7 sports side of things here. And Steve, I'll start with you. What's the advantage from an evaluation standpoint of being able to get eyes on players in this kind of setting?
Well, in this setting, I think you can actually distinguish who has more talent than somebody else with some of the things that they put these guys through. Like they do their pro day on the second day. It's a variety of throws, high-pressure throws that really show you how a player can throw on the move, how accurate they are down the field. And so we'll get a small sample size there of being able to compare these guys in the same setting, making all the same throws.
Ivins, I know you've seen a lot of these guys play in person. You've obviously watched film on all of them, but now you get to see them in this setting. So even from an evaluation standpoint on your end, how does it differ?
You just want to see how these guys react to bad throws, bad days, bad nights, right? These guys, it's a big body of work. You mentioned the film aspect. I mean, we're studying that as much as we can, breaking it down, going in there, and you kind of show up, all right, I expect this from a kid, but what if he does this out here, right? Like, I think DJ Lagway, the Florida commit, is a perfect example. This is not the setting for him. DJ Lagway is a freak athlete, right? That is a dual threat talent and an excellent open field runner. He's also got a cannon for an arm. It might not be the most accurate cannon, but it's gotten better and better. I don't anticipate him like this being his setting, but what happens if he goes out and he trades throws with CARR? He trades throws with Dylan Raiola. I think that can maybe change our outlook on him a little bit. So it's all that. Steve mentioned at the pro day, right? You're going to see these kids make the same scripted 22 throws. You'll have a good idea of where those arms are at. But really, it's just the competition aspect. It's sizing these kids up. You know, we're also going to get 7-on-7 play on Friday. I was talking with Ethan Grunkmeyer, who is headed to Penn State. He pointed out, I have not played much of any 7-on-7. The state of Ohio does not allow them to play 7-on-7. Ryan Puglisi, the kid headed to Ohio, also has not played much 7-on-7. So I think you take that all into account. I also think, this check-in process, having the opportunity to pick some of these kids' brains, see what their motivating factors are, where they are at mentally, just as far. I mean, this is a very unique event where you get all 20 of the top signal callers from around the country in the same room in the same 2 hours. So that's been a ton of fun.
What's really important about what you just said is, we have them all come through. And it's just past lunch on the West Coast, but Steve Wiltfong, Andrew Ivins, you guys have talked to every one or just about every one of the quarterbacks here already. and I hear that typing over there. And I look at the phone calls going on, and I know there is some scoop being picked up. So far through day one, Steve, you got your ear to the ground. What are some of the things you picked up on?
Well, there's two uncommitted quarterbacks here right now. Elijah Brown, our number 3 ranked passer out of Santa Ana Mater Dei. He says he's closing in on a college decision. His 2 finalists right now are Stanford and UCLA. Took an official visit to the Bruins in May. Loves Coach Chip Kelly and his potential in that offense. And then he was just at Stanford the first weekend of June, and he's loving the new coaching staff, the culture there, and the players on the team are talking about what they're expecting to be a quick turnaround on the field with that new staff. I like where Stanford stands right now for Elijah Brown. So does our colleague, 24/7 Sports national analyst Greg Biggins. And again, I think a decision will be shortly after the Elite 11 final. Stanford has risen to number 10 in the 24/7 Sports recruiting rankings right now. Elijah Brown would be a major coup for them moving forward. And then Trevor Jackson from Andrew Ivins' home state, the Sunshine State. You've been on him for a long time. His stock has finally risen. There's 3 schools that are strongly in the mix for him right now. Pitt, who he took an official visit to the first weekend of June. Texas A&M, where he was in College Station this past weekend, and then Missouri, he's going to visit them next weekend, and then Miami's starting to pick up the contact with him right now, so we'll see what happens with the Hurricanes. But right now, I think I might give the edge to Texas A&M for Trevor Jackson right now. They're in the mix for several quarterbacks, but this is a young man that grew up. Jimbo Fisher was his dream coach. He watched him a lot at Florida State, and he said, just Jimbo Fisher wanting me on his team, that's big. He had a great visit to College Station last weekend. He also talked about Bobby Petrino's pedigree with offenses and developing quarterbacks. And so he loved his visit to Pitt, got to meet Mike Tomlin and stuff and see how close they are to an NFL franchise. He's excited about getting up to Missouri and hanging out with Coach Kip Moore and them. But I think Texas A&M has maybe set the tone in this recruitment moving forward. And then one last nugget, maybe a major nugget, talk to Air Noland, longtime Ohio State commit. He says he talks to Jeremiah Smith, text or FaceTime or call almost every day. He feels really good about the Buckeyes hanging on to Jeremiah Smith moving forward. He just said he's a receiver. He can go out and have fun with his recruiting process, but he's as locked in as I am right now with Ohio State.
I know it's a quarterback event. I've been asking these quarterbacks, hey, build your dream offense, right? You know, who are some guys you want to play with? Jeremiah Smith has been mentioned by, I think, everyone. Like, everyone just knows he is the dude. And I'm talking like Jaden Davis, who's headed to Michigan. Oh, yeah, that's the guy I want to play with. And I thought that was certainly interesting as well. So he is stamped by his peers as the guy here in the 24 cycle.
A lot going on here in Southern California. A ton of coverage coming your way on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Andrew Ivins, Steve Wiltfong. I'm Josh Pate. Plenty more in the days ahead.